This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good Friday afternoon. Thanks for checking in. Wet and windy, your weather watchwords today. A high wind warning in effect for areas downwind of the Great Lakes. Those winds could whip to 60 miles per hour south and east of Lakes Erie and Ontario. Peak gusts will be between 3 and 7 tonight. Watch for downed trees and power lines maybe. Kevin Williams has that weekend forecast on the way. There's been another shooting involving federal officers in this country, this time in Portland, Oregon. Border Patrol agents fired at a pickup truck last night while trying to arrest members of a Venezuelan gang. Portland Mayor Keith Wilson.
Our community deserves answers. Our community deserves accountability. And most of all, our community deserves peace.
The Department of Homeland Security says the driver of a Toyota Tacoma attempted to run over federal officers who are attempting to take into custody members of the notorious Tren de Aragua gang. The two inside were shot. Here's the 911 call placed to police.
Police are en route. It looks like caller saying that he was shot twice by ICE. And his wife was shot as well.
The man in the truck was shot in the arm. The wife was shot in the chest. Border Patrol agent Greg Bavino.
This violent rhetoric, whether it's a Tim Walz, Newsom, a Pritzker, that is what they're saying, is they're choosing those illegal aliens over American citizens and over American law enforcement. Is reprehensible.
Meantime, the FBI has taken over the investigation into Wednesday's fatal ICE-involved shooting of a mom in Minneapolis. Reporter Garrett Tenney.
As these protests continue, the Minnesota National Guard is on standby in case things get out of hand. Very different from what we saw 5 years ago when Governor Tim Walz waited 3 days to activate the Guard, and at that point, the city was burning.
5 years ago is when Minneapolis burned in protests over the death of George Floyd. It was a December to remember when it comes to the monthly jobs report. Unemployment in this country dipping to 4.4% last month. Employers adding about 50,000 new jobs to their payrolls. That's still less than what economists were hoping for. President Trump meeting today at the White House with top oil executives as he plans to cash in on oil seized from Venezuela. The president telling Fox News host Sean Hannity what he wants those oil execs to do.
They're going to go in. They're going to rebuild the whole oil infrastructure. They're going to spend at least $100 billion.
When they nationalized the oil industry in Venezuela, going back to the 1920s, American companies had invested billions.
We built it.
All of it.
And then it was taken away. It was stolen from us. I just took it back.
The heads of Chevron, ExxonMobil, and ConocoPhillips all meeting with the president today. Anti-government protests are spreading in Iran. Tehran's theocratic rulers today cut power to phone and internet service in the capital city. These demonstrations have been going on for a couple of weeks now. NBC's Richard Engel.
The situation in Iran is developing and it is deadly. Human rights groups say that at least 40 protesters have been killed over the last 2 weeks as the future of Iran's Islamic government, in place since 1979, could be on the line.
International security expert Brent Sadler.
The longer this goes, the more likely this regime is about to reach a breaking point. So we're not that far into this. When the Shah fell from power, it was after about a year of this type of activity.
Protests have broken out in nearly every major city in Iran because of living conditions under the country's strict Islamic rule. NASA is cutting short a space mission due to illness with one of the astronauts aboard the International Space Station. This is the first time in the 25-year history of the orbital outpost that this has happened. NASA's Chief Medical Officer, James Polk.
There's some lingering risk for that astronaut on board. And so So always we err on the side of the astronauts' health and welfare.
The 4-person crew includes 2 U.S. astronauts, a Japanese astronaut, and a Russian cosmonaut. They'll all be coming home in the coming days. A new study shows people who stop taking weight loss injections are likely to regain that weight within a couple of years. The research looked at the weight loss medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. Scientists found those who take the drug often start regaining weight within a month of stopping the shots. The University of Miami is headed to college football's national championship.
Carson Beck with his legs puts Miami on top.
Quarterback Carson Beck running for the game-winning touchdown to beat Ole Miss 31-27 in the Fiesta Bowl. The Hurricanes will play the winner of tonight's Peach Bowl between top-ranked Indiana and the Ducks of Oregon. Still to come on the Noon Report, Pennsylvania grave robber, flu cases taxing hospitals, and Hochul's pitch for universal child care.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. The price we pay for the January thaw, high winds and rain. I'll have the details in the forecast up in 10.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you then. Health officials sounding the alarm over the current surge in flu cases. Dr. Sam Cloud is chief of medicine for the Erie County Medical Center.
I've been practicing emergency medicine for 25 years, and this is the worst number of flu cases, positives, hospitalizations in my entire career.
The worst flu season in 25 years has led to shortages of beds at some hospitals. Experts recommend you don't go to the ER unless you absolutely have to. Dr. Josh Lynch with DeGraff Memorial Hospital tells WIVB.
Really, the emergency department should be reserved for people that are very sick. Most cases of upper respiratory infections and even most cases of influenza can be managed at home.
Dr. Michael Mangione is medical director at Kenmore Mercy Hospital.
We're trying to do the best that we can, seeing everyone that comes through the doors, but it's definitely stressing our system. We're lacking bed capacity. Staff is working very hard, but it's becoming very challenging taking care of this influx of patients.
Meantime, New York State says it will keep its current childhood vaccination rules for schools and daycares. It is rejecting new federal recommendations to reduce shots for children. Recently, the CDC overhauled child vaccination rules amid a record-breaking flu season. New York Governor Kathy Hochul will pitch universal child care in her State of the State speech next week. Hochul wants to invest more than $435 million into pre-K programs outside of New York City. Her goal is to have universal pre-K available to every child in New York within 2 years. Pennsylvania's never had a female governor before, but that could happen this year. 61-year-old State Treasurer Stacey Garrity has emerged as the lone GOP challenger now to first-term Democratic incumbent Josh Shapiro. Northern Tier Representative Clint Owlett thinks Garrity is up to the challenge.
Stacey's a phenomenal person, and she does a great job as our treasurer, and she is going to be a great governor. And so for her to be able to get the nod early is helpful.
Garrity avoided a GOP primary when State Senator Doug Mastriano announced this week he will not seek the nomination. Rochester, New York authorities have released the body cam footage from the December 19th shooting of 3 police officers. They were shot while responding to a domestic call at a home on Chilai Avenue.
Hey man, stop for a second. Stop for a second.
38-year-old Eric Davis opened fire on the officers from outside the home. The cops returned fire, killing Davis as he fled the scene. Rochester Police Chief David Smith.
Mr. Davis did everything he could do to kill these officers.
The police chief says had those cops not been wearing bulletproof vests, they would not be alive today. One of them is still in the hospital. Pennsylvania police have captured a grave robber they say is responsible for stealing human remains. A lot of human remains. 34-year-old Jonathan Gerlach of Ephrata, accused of stealing over 100 sets of human remains after being caught in the act at a Philadelphia area cemetery. Delaware County DA Tanner Rouse.
26 separate mausoleums and or underground burial sites had been torn into.
The local police chief Henry Giamarco.
Rest in peace is rest in peace, and this Yeah, it was definitely an event.
The DA calls the grisly discovery in Ephrata a horror movie come to life.
This is an unbelievable scene. I've never seen anything like this before.
Neighbors say they're stunned too.
I'm getting goosebumps now, actually, thinking about it.
You know, you don't expect something to be happening right outside your door like that.
The human skeletons were found in Gerlach's home in Lancaster County. Some of those remains were more than 200 years old. A Pennsylvania politician is pushing for new legislation aimed at protecting bees and other pollinators from a widely used farm chemical.
Neonic insecticides, synthetic chemicals derived from nicotine, have long been used as seed coatings on crops like corn and soybeans to prevent insect damage. But studies have shown they can also harm pollinators. State Senator Judy Schwank of Berks County is now introducing legislation that would phase in restrictions rather than an outright ban on those chemicals, giving farmers time to adjust while protecting pollinators. Pennsylvania beekeepers are backing the effort, urging residents to be more aware of what they put on their lawns and fields, saying those chemicals can ripple through the environment and into the food we eat. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. Let's pause, talk sports. It's the 2-minute drill as the noon report rolls on Family Life.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the Miami Hurricanes rallied past Ole Miss 31-27 to capture the Fiesta Bowl last night. Carson Beck threw for 268 yards and 2 scores to go along with the game-winning score on the ground. Mark Fletcher Jr. ran for 133 yards, and Keelan Marion caught 7 passes for 114 yards and a touchdown. Trinidad Chambliss threw for 277 yards and a score for Ole Miss. They finished the season 13-2. The Canes improved to 13-2, and they will face either Indiana or Oregon in the national championship game. Top-ranked and undefeated Indiana takes on the Ducks tonight. On the ice, the Sabres took on the Rangers at Madison Square Garden, and Buffalo won at 5-2. Josh Doan, Alex Tuck, Jason Zucker, Matthias Samuelsson, and Ryan McLeod all scored as the Sabres continue the roll that they are on. They have now won 12 of 13. The Rangers got goals from Mika Zibanejad and Vincent Trocheck. The Penguins pounded the Devils 4-1 to win their 6th in a row. Erik Karlsson, Connor Dewar, Evgeny Malkin, and Blake Lizotte all found the back of the net. The Flyers lost a 2-1 overtime decision to Toronto, and the Islanders fell in a shootout, also 2-1, against Nashville. Also skating to victories, the Bruins, Canadiens, Red Wings, Hurricanes, Oilers, Avalanche, Knights, and Wild. To the NBA, your winners, the Pacers, T-Wolves, and Jazz. That is a look at sports.
All right, thank you, Randy. Still to come on the Noon Report, Tehran blackout, Portland protests, and how safe is your church? We're talking to an expert after this.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stone Street. In an inaugural address that was delivered on New Year's Day, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani promised, and I quote, to replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. Social media quickly filled with memes that paired the quote with images of the victims of Nazi, Stalinist, and Maoist warm collectivism. Well, for all of Mamdani's charisma, his choice of words was certainly intentional. Regurgitating language from revolutionaries and ivory tower intellectuals. He's not attempting to hide who he is or what he plans to do. And he said as much in his inauguration speech. Quote, we will govern without shame and insecurity, making no apology for what we believe. I was elected as a democratic socialist. I will govern as a democratic socialist. I will not abandon my principles for fear of being deemed radical. Except, of course, that his principles are radical. In fact, as Al Mohler put it over at World Opinions, they come right out of the Marxist nightmare. And we know how this dream ends. As Mohler continued, quote, it's not that his ideas haven't been tried, it's that they've produced immeasurable human misery wherever they've been adopted, end quote. Either Mamdani doesn't understand the history of his ideas, or he believes that this time will be different. After winning the race on November the 4th, he declared, "We will prove that there's no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about." That comment reminded many of what President Reagan once called the 9 most terrifying words in the English language. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. In fact, Mamdani sounds very much indeed like another politician, one who said all within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. That was Benito Mussolini. Now, at one time, it would have been problematic for an American politician to essentially subquote a fascist dictator, but many younger Americans are ready to reconsider the failed ideas of the past. According to a recent YouGov and Economist poll, nearly half of Americans aged 18 to 29 have a favorable view of socialism. Unsurprisingly, that demographic overwhelmingly turned out for Mamdani. Now, key factor here is that many in the younger generation simply do not know better. Their education has failed them. They've heard all about the evils of capitalism, but not about the many who were killed attempting to escape socialist regimes, or why the escapes always and only went in one direction. They've been taught to fear the impending catastrophes of climate change, which is, they've been told, the fault of evil corporations, but they haven't been told about the mass starvations which resulted from the state controlling industry and agriculture. They've learned that socialism is about sharing, not that the sharing is often forced at gunpoint. They've learned that when socialism fails, it's because it was done wrong, and that true socialism has never been tried. Well, the truth about socialism is that it is inherently immoral. As Ben Shapiro put it a few years ago, socialism is bad because socialism is tyranny. Not it's an aspect of tyranny. Socialism itself is tyranny. The notion of socialism is that you don't own your own freedom. In other words, the reason oppression results every time socialism is tried is because it's built into the system. Oppression is not a bug of socialism, it's a feature. The individual, with his or her unique insight, perspective, and preference, becomes an existential threat to the grand socialist project. In contrast, within a Christian worldview, dignity is given to individuals by God, who made them in his image. Individuals bring dignity to the families, the communities, and to the societies around them. They're not cogs in a government-sponsored wheel. They're not problems for the state to solve. They are, to borrow from J.R.R. Tolkien, sub-creators who, given the freedom and chance to do so, will always outperform any mass system that seeks to control them. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
All right, thank you, John. Let's head outside. Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life forecast for this afternoon. Mainly cloudy, warm and wet with showers and strong winds. High temperatures today from the 50s in western New York and western Pennsylvania to around 50 farther east. Tonight, winds and showers subside. Low temps dropping to 30 tomorrow. Cloudy, raw, chillier. With rain arriving in the afternoon and at night, could be some sleet. High temps, 30s and low 40s. Brisk and cold Sunday. Variable clouds, flurries, and developing lake snow. Highs in the 30s.
All right, well, so much for our spring fling. Thank you, Kevin. This is the Noon Report. I'm Bob Price. Here's what's happening Friday, the 9th of January. The December unemployment rate went public today. Employers added about 50,000 jobs to their payrolls. The overall unemployment rate dipped to 4.4%. In Portland, Oregon, a Border Patrol agent shot and wounded 2 people last night during a traffic stop. Homeland Security says the officer fired in self-defense as the driver of the pickup tried to run him over. Inside the vehicle were suspected members of the Trende Aragua gang. Correspondent Dana Griffin.
There's still a lot of unanswered questions. What started off as a targeted vehicle stop turned violent, forcing this agent to fire his weapon, according to DHS.
This comes just a day after a mom in Minneapolis was shot to death in a controversial exchange of gunfire with ICE agents. She was also in her vehicle, and the government says she, too, tried to run them down. A case of self-defense, says Homeland Security. The FBI is leading this investigation. Correspondent Maggie Vespa has more from Minneapolis.
Following more explosive protests here overnight, police actually closing several blocks around the intersection where Wednesday's fatal shooting happened, trying to keep the peace as the Trump administration vows immigration raids will continue.
The White House plans to deploy an additional 100 border agents to Minneapolis. They'll join about 2,000 ICE officers already on the ground there. More protests today in Tehran. Islamic leaders have cut phone and internet service in the capital city as thousands take to the streets. Protesters are burning cars and government buildings. The Ayatollah calls them terrorists. International security expert Brent Sadler calls them freedom fighters.
Every corner of the country now has had major and sustained protests in every major city across the country. Several cities apparently have even been taken over by protesters as the Iranian authorities have vacated out of the area.
At least 45 protesters, including many children, have been killed since these demonstrations began in late December. President Trump says he canceled a second wave of attacks on Venezuela after the Latin American nation agreed to release political prisoners. This follows that military operation last weekend to oust from power the Venezuelan strongman Nicolas Maduro. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright.
We've got wildly different leverage now. We've got a Venezuelan government that wants to work with the United States because that's the only way they get oil revenue. So I think we're going to see a very, very positive change in the trajectory of Venezuela, which is great for that country, but it's tremendous for the American people.
The president's meeting at the White House today with top oil executives. The Trump administration's taking control of up to 50 million barrels of oil from Venezuela. A Pennsylvania man accused of stealing bodies from a cemetery. Delaware County District Attorney Tanner Rouse says a search of the suspect's home in Ephrata turned up more than 100 sets of human remains.
Some of them obviously much newer. There's one that had a pacemaker still attached to the body. So we are trying to figure out exactly what went on in that home.
34-year-old Jonathan Gerlach's facing hundreds of charges. Some of those skeletal remains were more than 200 years old. Also out of the Commonwealth today, Northern Tier Representative Clint Owlett is speaking to Family Life News about efforts to legalize recreational marijuana in Pennsylvania. He joined us in our studios in Bath yesterday. Here's part of that conversation.
So the reality is of them trying to do that again, it would have to be a totally different bill because it's already been shot down. So I just don't see it happening in 2026, which is great for us. We don't think that we need to have more drugs out on the street. So I don't see it coming up, but it is legislature and you never know what someone's going to do. But 2026 is going to be an interesting year. Obviously an election year for the governor, for the whole House of Representatives. So it'll be interesting to see, what the budget looks like going into next year. I'm hoping that the big budget battle that we had in 2025, doesn't rinse and repeat for 2026. Hopefully we can, come to a sound budget very early, in June, get it done on time like we all want to.
That's Pennsylvania politician Clint Owlett, a Republican representative from the Northern Tier. And for the first time in 23 years, the Miami Hurricanes are playing in college football's national championship. Canes quarterback Carson Beck ran for the deciding touchdown with 18 seconds left last night to secure the win over Ole Miss in the Fiesta Bowl.
Feels real good to be a Cane, baby. I'm so proud of this team. I'm so thankful for all these fans, man. This is who we do it for, man. The whole city. We got y'all on our back, baby. Go Canes.
Go Canes, he says. The Hurricanes will play the winner of tonight's Indiana-Oregon game for the national title. And next at noon, how safe is your church? On Saturday, January 31st, an expert on church security will hold a training seminar at the Trinity Point Church of God in Clarion, Pennsylvania. Dr. Barry Young with Serving Watchmen says church security is everyone's business. Since 1999, there have been over 1,700 violent church incidents, and the vast majority of these are preventable. I'm wondering if we could just start off by having you explain, when it comes to church security, what most concerns you?
The number one thing that concerns me about church safety is churches don't take it serious. CNN just came out. It was on the front page of CNN.com. The most dangerous hour in America, 11 a.m. Sunday morning.
Wow.
And then a month later, Fox News came out, and on their front page, it said in 2023, violent attacks in the church doubled last year. And I think it's interesting. Rarely do Republicans and Democrats agree on anything. Yet the number one Democrat outlet, the number one Republican outlet, are both saying church violence in America is at a catastrophic level.
Yeah. You argue that when it comes to security, you have to become your own first responder. What does that mean?
So we live by a phrase. The Bible says in Proverbs 22:3, a wise man sees danger and prepares. And we live by this phrase, let's prepare and prevent. so we don't have to repair and repent. You know you're doing church security correctly when the church becomes more friendly, and you know you're doing church security incorrectly when the church becomes less friendly.
I know a lot of churches have security teams, but is it enough? I mean, that's the big thing. You argue there's a difference between having a church safety team and having a church safety ministry. In what areas are churches ill-equipped to deal with the threats out there today?
Well, I think, first of all, you nailed it. Our heartbeat is we don't train church security teams, we train church security ministries. I think there can be extremes. So one extreme is we're just going to trust God and we're not going to do any preparation. And then I think the other extreme is, well, we're going to have bouncers in God's house and be scary or intimidating. Our goal is to be loving, to be kind, but also, Matthew 10:16 says, be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. And so I think the first thing churches make a mistake on is not being friendly. What happens is, do criminals want to be seen or unseen? The moment everybody is greeted, we have many instances where a potential threat is greeted by a loving church member and they leave the church. Criminals simply don't want to be seen. Oftentimes when it comes to church safety, we forget one of the biggest cornerstones of church safety is protecting our children. The number one lawsuit forced against the American church is misconduct or mishandling of children.
That's a great point. And more so than even with schools, which kind of have a lock the doors, keep everyone out. In church, they want people to come in and be part of the community, and you want to be friendly and accepting and all of that. But, as a friend said to me once, you got to put your big city on sometimes and de-escalate situations before they happen. Lock doors. You mentioned the kids and the background checks with people who work with children. There is a lot of areas that are being missed when it comes to church ministry in the name of being that inviting, kind of welcoming environment. Is that not the case?
I totally agree with that, and I want to laser focus on schools. So when we first started serving watchmen, we were focused on church safety. But what happened is public schools kept coming up to us. This last fall, we trained 21 schools in lockdown training. And an operative word I want is lockdown. So in a public school, if a public school receives federal dollars, 100% of staff are lockdown trained. And my question is, what percent of churches have lockdown trained and certified their kids ministry workers, their Sunday school teachers for children? And so I would say easily less than 1%. I understand why guns or physical force could be a controversial issue, but in our lockdown training, we teach 16 ways to lock a door. We teach how to verbally diffuse a situation. We teach how to professionally break a window. And the reason we do that, if there's a threat coming down the hallway, one of the highest ways to save your life and your loved ones and your children, break the window and get out of the building. So I believe one of the cornerstones of safe church training is lockdown training.
Yeah. And why does this matter? Well, last year there were 656 mass shootings. That was just last year in this country. Again, the event is January 31st at the Trinity Point Church of God in Clarion, Pennsylvania. Barry, you've been very kind with your time today. What do you hope folks who attend this one-day event? It's from 9 to 4. What do you hope they will take away from this seminar?
Everyone that comes to our seminar is going to get practical tips, tools, and techniques that they can immediately use to keep their churches safe, their loved ones safe, and themselves safe. They're going to get a certification. They're going to get 10 handouts. They're going to get practical training from people that have done church security for 20 years. It's going to be a fun environment. We want every church in America to have a comprehensive safety and security plan from the parking lot to the pulpit that includes everything from Band-Aids to bullets.
Yeah. And some might say, you're listening today, why do I need this kind of training? I don't work with children. I'm not a teacher, or I don't have any real responsibility at church. Why is this an event that everybody should attend, not just a certain few?
I've been in law enforcement for 20 years. One thing we see in every violent attack, when seconds count, the police are minutes away. In 99% of violent incidents, by the time law enforcement arrives, the event is over. And so we know that violence in our country is not going down, it's going up. And so what we want to do is we want people to be safe. We want their futures, their families to be safe. And we believe that safety is everyone's responsibility.
That is Dr. Barry Young with Serving Watchmen, an expert on church security. His one-day seminars coming up Saturday, January 31st from 9 to 4 at the Trinity Point Church of God in Clarion, Pennsylvania. You can learn more at familylife.org/events.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. A potent area of low pressure north of Detroit is going to be our weather maker this afternoon. With it, it'll be warm, wet, most importantly, very windy. Damaging wind gusts, in fact, are a possibility in western New York. It turns chillier over the weekend. We'll have rain, a little sleet, followed by some lake flakes. Forecast details for this afternoon. It'll be mainly cloudy, warm and wet with showers and strong winds. The strongest winds, again, in western New York, gusting near 60 miles an hour. High temperatures today from the 50s in western New York and western Pennsylvania to around 50 farther east. Tonight, winds and showers subside, low temps dropping to 30 tomorrow. Cloudy, raw, chillier. With rain arriving in the afternoon and at night, could be some sleet, high temps, 30s and low 40s. Brisk and cold Sunday, variable clouds, flurries, and developing lake snow. Highs in the 30s.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Finally today, so much for that New Year's resolution. Remember that? Well, today's the day most of us who make a New Year's resolution will break our New Year's resolution.
About 1/3 of all U.S. adults made a New Year's resolution 10 days ago. Thoughts filled with promise to go to the gym, get finances in order, and save money. But statistically, today's the day it's all over, as today is National Quitters Day, and 80% of people who made a resolution give up. There are reasons: unrealistic goals, poor planning, and the big one, the novelty has worn off. There's always next year. I'm Bree Tennis.
Yeah, Bree, we'll try again next year. And that's our world, the world we live in. Friday, January 9th. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.